Thank you. Well, it's really great to be here at the largest institution of higher education and the most diverse institution of higher education in the entire United States. So, welcome to the Miami Book Fair and Miami-Dade College. And you know, I loved college, I really did. Best 4 years of my life was spent as a sophomore at LSU. How many people are scared? How many people are very scared? You're not scared enough. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Our president-elect doesn't know the first thing about the first thing. And you see these appointments that were being made today? You should be scared. People come up and say, tell me something good. I can't. I can't. Come up and say, tell me something good. I can't. I can't. And you know what is the most amazing thing? Is since the beginning of modern political parties, which is considered 1828, this is the first time that a political party has won the popular vote in 6 out of the last 7 presidential elections. You realize what is getting ready to happen to you in this country has not been authenticated by a will of the people. The people have decided that they're not for this. It may be a quirk in the Constitution, it may be a quirk in gerrymandering, but it's not the will of the people. And as long as we are the democratic, and you can put a small d in there if you want to, party, we're going to fight for democratic values. These people may have the authority of a constitutional election to get rid of Medicare. They may have the authority of a constitutional election to deny climate. They may have the authority of a constitutional election to run roughshod over women in this country. They may have the authority of a constitutional election to appoint alt-right anti-Semites to the office next to the president, but they don't have the authority of the will of the people. And that's the most sacred authority you can have in any democracy anywhere. And we have the absolute responsibility to expose and educate the public as to what's going on. Because they're getting ready to run roughshod. They may have the constitutional election to back out of NATO and line up with Putin, but they don't have the will of the people. They don't have the will of the people. The Democrats are going to win this election by 2.5 million votes. Not even particularly close. So they can invoke anything they want, and they're going to run roughshod over the Supreme Court. You just stand by. I don't have much that I can tell you, and we're being told, well, maybe he's moderating. Oh, please. He says, I'm gonna keep the good parts of Obamacare and get rid of the bad parts. Oh, really? Wasn't somebody think of that before? And they write it down. Well, look, he's shown some flexibility on Obamacare. He's just going to give everybody everything they want. You know? No. So, you would think, again, people voted 2.5 million. We've had 2 successful Democratic presidencies that sandwiched a disastrous Republican presidency, and we're getting ready to have a disastrous Republican presidency. He wants to go sleep in his own bed on the weekends. He didn't know it's 24/7. He didn't know the world don't go to sleep. He didn't know that when it's noon here, it's midnight somewhere else. He didn't know that Sunday is just another day in the Islamic world. That's the president-elect by virtue of a quirk in the Constitution. That's not the president-elect by virtue of the will of the people. Understand that. Understand that. And they say, well, you're just going to oppose because you don't know. I'm opposing because the people demanded. They voted. They instructed us to oppose. That was the marching orders that we got on election night. No one has said that. And people say, well, you can imagine what people would be saying if the Republicans won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College. What's the matter? We can't talk? Why'd they just get to complain? But they can't, I can't point that out? I'm being a sore loser if I say we won the election? If I point out correctly? If I point out correctly, we actually picked up House seats, we actually picked up Senate seats. Am I just being a sore loser, or am I telling the truth? But somehow or another, we're not allowed to tell the truth. But and so then he comes and he tells, and by the way, the people, and take no solace in this, the people that are going to get hurt the most are most of the people that went out and voted for him, because they're going to get rid of their Medicare, they're going to run roughshod over them. Every lobbyist is going to go crazy, and do not fall into temptation, because there are people, and they don't realize what's getting ready to happen, and it's getting ready to happen. They said they're going to drain the swamp. They got lobbyists on every transition thing that you have. If you think the swamp is the Everglades, let me tell you, that's the Everglades and the Okefenokee and the Atchafalaya and every swamp you ever heard of in your life put together. Ever put together. And there they're coming. Then he was going to he told his people, and understand, this man does not come to office with a list of policies. He comes to office with a list of grievances, of people we don't like. We don't like the liberals, we don't like the people, the East Coast, we don't like this, we don't like that, And by the way, all you coastal elites, all the people that are living in these gazillion-dollar high-rises here in South Florida, he's going to get you back. He's going to give you a tax cut. He's going to get rid of estate tax. He's going to lower the corporate income tax. He's really going to kill you, but he's going to fatten you up first. The coastal elites are going to do great. They're going to do fine. They're going to deregulate the coastal elites that want to drill off of the coast of South Florida. Highball it, have at it, you'll do great. Now, if you happen to live in a place like all the people in this room, that's subject to global warming, they'll probably get you at some point. That's how he's going to get the coastal elites back. He's going to flood you out. I know I shouldn't be joking about it, but what can you do? All you good people come out here, I've got to give you something to laugh at. But, and I did the book, I laid it out. Now, I mean, people say, well, look, you were wrong, the Republicans won. Well, no, they didn't win, they lost by 2.5 million, or 2.25 million, or whatever it's going to turn out. So, that was my phone. So, I mean, this is essentially where we are. If you look at any fact that you want, and by the way, think about this. We have produced Donald Trump in a nation with under 5% unemployment, 2.9% growth, with shrinking deficits, with rising incomes. Can you imagine what's going to happen in the future if we don't get a hold of this and get our message out and expose and educate people? Can you imagine what this is? And now we're going to be told we got to cut all these colleges. We got, we don't have the money. We got to have money for tax cuts. We don't have money for education. All right, you can see it coming. Paul Ryan's already said we're going to reform Medicare. You know what it means when I tell you they're going to reform Medicare? Yeah, exactly what they mean. They're going to take the money from Medicare and give it to their donors. And you see this coming. You see all of this coming. And if you ask me, could the Hillary's campaign done this? Could they have done that? Yeah. And then, we can second guess ourselves to death. I'll be glad to engage in second guessing or anything else. But at some point, our own people didn't get out. At some point, now again, we won, but we didn't get them out in Florida like we needed to. And we're going to learn a lesson, a big lesson. This is going to be one giant civics lesson. And what it's going to bang into your head is elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. So the first part of educating yourself, I'm serious, is I laid it right out in there. The facts, the time again and again, what the growth rate is, what the unemployment rate is, what the economic statistics are, what the things that we have done. And what's really kind of odd, at the moment that, we had, that under a Democratic president, we had taken this country back from the depths of a depression, or near depression, the worst recession we've ever had. We put 20 million more people on health insurance. We got out of wars that we were in, and we were, you would never know it reading the paper, doing pretty good in the fight against ISIS. We had started to acknowledge our problems with climate. We had started international agreements. We're out of all of those. We're out of all of those. And so what is our role as Democrats? Our role is this. We have to expose, let the public know when they're ripping and running, let the public know what the effect of what they're trying to do, and educate people, and be relentless about it. Be relentless about it. And again, go back to my question I asked you before. When people say, could you imagine the reaction if the Republicans would have won the popular vote but not the Electoral College? When's the last time you heard a Democrat raise hell about that? So think about that. But we won it 6 out of the last 7 times. The public has said we want the Democrats to make Supreme Court appointments. You know what they're going to get? Run over. What do we learn from this? We learned we should have known before, but we didn't. Can't let it happen again. People are going to get a civics education. This country is going to get the best 9th grade civics education that it ever got in its life. I promise you that. I promise you that. In every appointment he makes, everything that he does, expose and educate. Expose and educate. Expose and educate. That's what we have to do. That's our mission. That's the job ahead. And also when I say educate, educate yourself. Be informed. Fight this battle everywhere that you can. Fight it in the neighborhoods, fight it on the street, fight it any place that you see, on the campuses, wherever they are. Because this is a time, a very perilous time for the United States. We are being led by a person that knows nothing, who is surrounded by people who have an agenda that is contrary to the interests of what we believe in. And every person in here that believes in pluralism, every person in here that believes in science, in facts, in knowledge, we have to band together. This man is an affront to the concept of American pluralism. It is an affront to the concept that you would think that if you watched Animal House and you saw Dean Faber, what did it say on the statue? Knowledge is good. Well, it's no longer good. We have an argument with people it's good to know stuff anymore. But this is what this is. And the people in this country that fervently believe in pluralism, that fervently believe that we are better when we have a pluralistic, diverse country of different people, and who believe that knowledge is the basis of good public policy, we're in the fight of our lives. We're in the fight of our lives. We can't deny it. We can't sugarcoat it. We can't gloss over it. And if you don't accept those two values, then you're not in a fight. If you accept those two values, which I think it's the very core of what modern America should be, then let's get together and let's fight like hell. Let's expose. Let's educate. Thank you all very much. Okay, now I'm going to make an announcement. This is an Institute of Higher Education. The First Amendment applies. Free speech is here. However, if you're going to give a speech and not ask a question, just let us know. All right, just say, I got this microphone, and I'm not from Wisconsin, but I'm going to milk it for all it's worth. Okay?
Okay, so what can we do with the 2 million extra popular votes? Can we trade them for a seat on the Supreme Court? What can we do with them?
Well, I can tell you can blow your nose with them. What you can do is make the moral case that it gives us a moral case to resist. That's what you do with it. You take it to the higher ground, and you tell people that they're ignoring your vote. And you tell people that when we oppose, and we're not doing this just for the sake of doing it, we're doing it because we have been instructed by voters to do this. When you have the high ground, take it. If we have the high ground. Yep. Thank you. Very good. And it was a question, and I appreciate that.
Hello, honored to see you. I'm a Bernie delegate, and I was just wondering how you think the Bernie candidacy would have looked like, and what would have happened, how would it have gone?
You know, the truth of the matter is I don't know, and anybody that supposes they should have. But I would think that any sane person, the prospect of a Trump presidency, should have scared the bejesus out of him. And I just don't really. For Bernie in the primaries, that's perfect. That's your right. That's good. He had a case to make. But what is happening here is an outrage. And I don't know if Bernie would have run, if Joe Biden would have run, if Elizabeth Warren would have run. You know, the truth of the matter is we had a choice, and 2.5 million more people. Or somewhere between 2 and 2.5 million more people voted for us than them. And we have, regardless of what we are, we have an obligation to oppose this, to expose it, and to educate people.
If he ran again, would you see him having a chance in 2020? I'm hearing rumors of that.
You know, right now, I got a lot to do between now and 2020.
Yeah.
To fight the good fight, we need a good leader. Who would you like to see heading up the DNC, and why?
You know, I mean, Donna Brazile is like my bosom BFF. So I mean, I love Donna.
I like her too.
I don't. The DNC will have to make its own kind of pick. I've never been that involved in DNC politics. I'm trying to raise money and trying to work with different groups that again, trying to get at the bottom of what they're trying to do and let people know about it. And I hope we get a DNC that'll do what I want them to do, and that's expose and educate. But right now, I mean, I don't mean to be. I've just never been involved in DNC politics. It's just not something. You know, I've written books and I've tried to educate Democrats onto what we have, and I know if Keith Ellison runs, I've met Keith before. He's a very nice guy. I don't know what Donna's, I mean, if Donna's running, I'd obviously be for her. I just love her to death. I think she's just a terrific person. But we're not going to rise and fall on a party chair.
I enjoyed the premise of your book that we're still right, they're still wrong. But as you point out in the book, it often doesn't matter.
Well,
I have a question. I had the pleasure of going to a conservative religious college in the Bible Belt. And like you, I never converted a single Republican.
Right.
You mentioned that in your book.
Right.
The thing that I find, the question I have, well, if people are not voting on the basis of who's right and who's wrong, particularly the working class, the white male, then what are they voting for? And aren't they looking? Sure. Well, I want you to criticize what I'm going to say.
Okay.
So, to be honest with you, I don't know anybody more different than a working class person than Donald Trump.
Right.
That man is more like a robber baron. Shouldn't we be, the question, shouldn't we be pointing out he's not like us.
Right.
He's not like you white middle class people. That's my question.
Okay. And it's a very good point. Again, our values are pluralism and knowledge. If people reject that, then I'm sorry. But, you know, Max Planck, the great theoretical physicist, said that science does not triumph because it convinces its opponents. Science triumphs because its opponents eventually die. Science advances one funeral at a time. I'd be cynical about it. But you're right. And the real tragedy is that the very people that you talk about are going to be the first people that are going to be hurt by this. What I think is that if we do a good job of exposing and educating, then hopefully some will see the error of their ways. But you can't see the light unless you light the light. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to light the light. Now, they can choose not to see the light, to put it in a more fundamentalist term, but we're going to light the light. And we're going to point out how the stuff that they're proposing affects. And I'm going to urge the Democrats to get a composite of a Trump voter, what that person's status is. And in every piece of election say, this is what happened to Ben Bob. He's getting the living crap kicked out of him. And you can't blame him. You got to say, we didn't do a good enough job of telling Ben Bob what we were going to do. We got to blame ourselves, but we got to move forward.
Hello. I'm a Democrat, and I do believe that that we have the moral high ground. But I believe that we gave it up this year with your friend Donna Brazil's giving questions at the debate, things like that. I don't know whether they're true or not, but with all the emails, the WikiLeaks, I think that the moral high ground was no longer ours. So when you talk about the future, we need to really focus on people who are ethical, people who are more concerned about the voter than about the donor. So where are we going to, and I don't know much about Keith Ellison, but how can we find more moral people?
Well, let me start. I worked at CNN for a long time. I'm a partisan Democrat. If I found out something, I would tell the Democrats. Donna Brazil is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. Accusing her of being a Democrat is like accusing the Pope of being a Catholic. There's nothing immoral in my mind. I know we have a different view. There's nothing immoral about Donna saying, I heard these are the questions that they're going to ask you. It's not a morality question.
I disagree.
Okay, well, that's fine.
And I think that Hillary was very well prepared and did not need to be fed questions.
Again, Hillary didn't ask her to do it. I cannot accuse somebody of immorality when I know damn good and well I do the same thing myself. That's like me telling somebody that premarital sex is immoral. Well, mate.
I am of a certain age where, to me, Hillary Clinton is one of the most admirable and accomplished women of my lifetime. My question is, where does all this Hillary hatred come from, in your opinion? Why do people hate her?
Well, look, I think she is a remarkably admirable person. I think that she is a woman, a person, that believes in that at the core of success is preparation and hard work, which I think is a really, really diligent fact. One of the problems she has is that people are, for whatever reason, and a lot of them good, they can't stand politics. And to them, when they saw her, they see is somebody that has been in politics all of their lives. Now, if you were to tell me that Hillary Clinton campaign would have put on the best convention that I can remember, would have won the 3 debates by the biggest margin any presidential candidate has, and would win the popular vote by over 2 million votes and still wouldn't be president, I wouldn't have believed you. But I do think that she's an admirable person, but I think that she genuinely believes that you got to be responsible, you have to study hard, that there's multiple problems that require multiple solutions. And I think sometimes in politics, you have to be willing to be more concise and more emotional. And I don't think that was, you know...
Dumb it down?
Huh?
Dumb it down?
Well, you can say that, but I think I think that she believed and she prepared for everything. You know, you don't have to be like Donald Trump dumb. I mean, like, you know, like I know more about ISIS than the general. So my favorite, he said, well, I'm going to get in and I'm going to give the generals 30 days to figure out how to beat ISIS. Like you never thought about that before. You know,
Thank you.
and I think that the choices that she makes, she's a very, very responsible, knowledgeable person who is literally one of the most admirable people I knew. But she didn't, you know, she wasn't concise, or she believed that was it. And by the way, she got the most votes.
Hi. I'd like to ask about the Electoral College, and of course, you know, this is Florida, ground zero for fraud in Electoral College, perhaps. But there's at least on my Facebook feed, a rumor going around that there's some little-known clause that when the popular vote is for the candidate who didn't win, electors can switch their votes, and the state of Maryland has already committed to doing that.
I know what you're talking about. No. There's a way that certain people are going about that say, and I think very correctly, that you can change it and have the popular vote count without amending the Constitution. And what Maryland and some states have said, that as soon as states that total 270 electoral votes pass similar legislation, the legislature can instruct its electors to vote for who it wants. So by law, the Maryland legislature will instruct its electors to vote for the winner of the popular vote. So that's what that is. I am kind of familiar with that. There's a guy in San Francisco who's, you know, been very, very, very big on this issue. As President true, it's a long shot.
But is there any way to push that? Is there any
Well,
way
you could.
to-
I mean,
to
but
affect
why is the Republican Party, who is benefiting greatly, or why? One of the things that the Electoral College does, it mightily discriminates against minorities, because most minorities are in the same in California, New York. And so that's why we're going to win 2.5 million. It greatly empowers, but there's a lot, you're going to see a lot of political science on this coming up. But that's what the Maryland provision is. I'm familiar with that. I know. But what is the only time that a political party has won the popular vote? 6 out of the last 7 times since the formation of political parties. The Democrats in the last 7 elections. Educate, 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 educate. So when you ask somebody about it, say, I don't think it's fair that we win the popular vote in 6 out of the last 7 elections and they're going to control the Supreme Court. Educate, educate, educate. Privacy with that.
Following up on educate and expose, I think like a lot of people in this room, I felt totally flat-footed after the election. I felt uneducated about anything about Trump and what he really meant. I took most of my news in from the Times, and the Washington Post, and the usual sources. And my question for you is, I feel betrayed, and I want to know who to blame for being so ignorant to what happened to us and how I was reading 3 hours a day of this stuff. And I can't believe that I got beat up like this. So where is the press's responsibility, culpability, and what can we do forward so we're smarter going forward? Thank you.
You know, I don't want to get in the kind of position to defend the press, because I think there's a lot of things that they do that don't. The people like the PolitiFact, the factcheck.org people, whatever, they really, if you go look, there was a guy at Toronto Star, Glenn Kessler at the Washington Post. I mean, now the average voter and maybe the campaign should have put out, there's a kind of norm that politicians all kind of revolved around. Hillary, Bernie, Jeb Bush, John Kasich, all about, I want to say it's like 20% false, or mostly false or something. With Trump, it was like 60. I mean, no one was even close. And they kept, to the extent that anybody wanted to read it. And they actually did some, now what I think is they totally overblew the whole email thing. I mean, there was never, but even Comey, who did everything he could. I think it's a near coup d'etat that they did. Even say, well, no reasonable person would say that even in case there's any case to make against him. And so I think they were totally snookered on that. The most disgraceful thing of the entire campaign was the foundation. The Clinton Foundation is been described by the head of Charity Watch, which one of his leading things is the preeminent philanthropy of our generation. And because of the press's action with the Clinton Foundation, people are going to die. And if there's any morality in the world for people to go out and do something like that just to show that they have the power to do it, knowing that it's going to cause people around the world to die, is a shame.
Do you feel my anger is misplaced when I directed at the press?
I feel your anger is what now? No, I think that I would give them a passing grade on exposing Trump's lies. I would give them a F minus on trumping up all the so-called Clinton scandals. So that means, but look, I'm just a guy with opinion, as are you. Thank you. I mean, I can understand how you feel that way, but boy, I tell you, they caught him lying every time, and people didn't care. He would just sit in debate and says, I was against the war, because he wasn't, and they keep pointing it out. He was like, the people that voted for him, again, our shared values are pluralism and knowledge. those values in many states didn't carry the day. They carried the day with most people. Yes, sir.
Number one, you're the man. Thank you for coming.
Oh, well, thank you.
Do a little dance. Do a little dance. There it is.
Yeah.
My question is specifically regarding millennials. Look around. We're on a college campus. How many millennials are in the room? You tell me. I can't really see so good. All three of them back there. I'm a millennial. I'm probably the oldest millennial. My question is this. How do we get millennials more involved, engaged, and part of the process? Because if millennials, frankly, gave up, Hillary Clinton would be the president right now. So, in your opinion, how do we specifically get millennials involved?
Did you see the tape I did with the millennials about what it would be like when Trump won on election night? I did a tape. Did anybody see that? It got around. It was a video that I did. Okay, well, it didn't get that many people there. Good try.
Google it.
Look, that is a remarkable question. And I don't know if anything, I teach at Tulane, so I've done it for 8 years, so I'm around young people. And it doesn't, it's like my kids, it doesn't do any good to get mad at what they do because they do what they're going to do. But I have to say I'm like profoundly disappointed that they didn't sufficiently recognize the threat that Trump posed. And I hate to say this, but you know that there's no better education than the kick of a mule, and the mule is going to kick them, and they don't know. Right. But I'm haunted by your question. It's a very good question. Unfortunately, it's so often the case with young people, they're going to have to learn the hard way.
So the answer to my question is they just have to learn the hard way? Do you have any specific...
They didn't come out and vote this time. Maybe, maybe the Democrat, maybe Hillary could have done a better job on mobilization or whatever, but you would think that the prospect of Donald Trump would be sufficient to get people out to vote.
You would think, right?
Yeah, you would think.
So, as far as advice goes, just...
Well, again, I go back to
get a kick by the mule and keep it moving, or what?
We have to expose and we have to educate. So we have to tell young people they're taking money away from your future and giving it to their donors. We have to tell young people that the stuff that they're doing, that, you know, to tell young people are going to be denied access to birth control. We have to tell young people that their parents are going to not have the kind of health care that they need. We have to tell people that. So I guess we have to do a better job of educating young people because based on this election, they're not going to self-educate.
Correct. Thank you.
Is there any way to hold Donald Trump accountable? What if he has conflict of interest, breaks a law?
What is my message tonight?
It's got to be more than that.
I'm a man with a message. How many times have I said expose and educate?
But is there anything else?
Expose and educate. Expose and educate. Expose and educate. That's what we're going to try to do. That's our mission.
Okay, that question didn't go well.
Oh, no, it went great. It went great. You gave me the platform to talk about it. It was a great question.
Okay, I get a second. What does your wife think of the Trump presidency?
Most women I know don't want their husbands to speak for them. I'm not going to speak for my wife. I'll get in trouble. I can tell you what I think. I'm not going to tell you what she thinks. I'll get in too much trouble.
Being that Americans hate change...
Excuse me?
Being that Americans hate change, what are 2 issues you see improving over the next 8 years under President-elect Trump's administration?
What was the question? Huh?
Being that Americans hate change, what are 2 issues you see improving under President-elect Trump's administration in the next 8 years?
Well, The Constitution kind of says he's got to go again in force. So but knowing Trump, he may try to seize power without it. It'd be like his friend Putin. So we got to be vigilant to make sure that. And what are the issues I see? What was I couldn't hear the issues that he.
2 issues that you see
that what?
would improve.
Well, I think the biggest issue we face today, bar none, is climate. I mean, I have no idea how an amoeba could live in South Florida or South Louisiana and not understand that what's going on there.
I apologize.
I mean, the second thing is I go back to my essential thing that at least with me and many people, but not everybody, pluralism and knowledge are shared values, are thought to be good things. They are distinctly under attack. So I guess I gave you 3 instead of 2, but that's my view. Thank you.
Do you think the Clintons see themselves as the last hope against a corporate oligarchy? And if so, do you think they became the very thing that they are against, or claim to be anyway?
What did you say, the corporate oligarchy? I think that under Bill Clinton, we had the best economy we've had under any president. It's the only time since the 70s that incomes actually grew. So I thought that, I'm not exactly sure what people's problem was with the Clinton years. Was it the piece of the prosperity? But something really got under somebody's skin. Look, and if anybody thinks that Donald Trump doesn't represent the corporate oligarchy who wants to get rid of the estate tax and lower the corporate tax and lower taxes on the 1%, for all of the people who bitched about the Clintons, well, you got your wish. There's no Clinton in there. Thank you.
What is your formula for addressing and solving 2 key structural legal problems? The first is the complete seizure of the redistricting process by the Republicans, accomplished very quietly, now memorialized in a book whose name cannot be mentioned during family television hour. But in any event, that's what happened, and the control of the state legislatures is why we wound up with the Congress we have. Secondly, the Constitution can be amended with great difficulty, but it can be amended to deal with the Electoral College issue. And it seems to me that for both of those questions, it's important to have a boots on the ground, nuts and bolts ground game for addressing both of those issues.
Well, I'll take the second part first. Electoral College, I think, is best addressed under the Maryland legislation, where you don't have to amend the Constitution. I explained earlier that the state legislature will say as soon as states totaling 270 electoral votes file a suit, we will instruct by law our electors have to vote for the popular vote winner. That way you just need the states comprised of 1 plus half of the electors. To amend the Constitution, you need 2/3 of the Congress and 3/4 of the state legislature. So I think the Maryland solution is a quicker way to achieve the result that you want. Right? On the redistricting, you're exactly right. There's model legislation that appoints. I mean, there's a good government way that you can go about this. You can, round up the usual suspects at Florida State, Miami-Dade College, and you can submit a bunch of different plans that are based on kind of geography and common sense, and the legislature has to vote it up or down. And I want to say Iowa, but a couple of states have adapted this, and it works better. But one of the big problems, I got to tell you, one of the big problems that we can't do anything about is we keep winning the popular vote because Democrats are inefficiently distributed. So a lot of times people say, what can I do to help the Democratic Party? My answer is move. I mean, that's somewhat of a distribution problem here, but the Electoral College can be fixed through matters a little easier than the Constitution, and there are proposals to make redistricting more equitable, but as long as people understand at the core of the Republican Party is the philosophy that we don't want democracy. So the Electoral College does not represent democracy. The fairly apportioned legislative districts do not represent democracy. Harsh voting laws do not represent democracy. They know they can't win elections straight up, so the one thing Trump was right, it's a rigged deal. He just didn't realize who was doing the rigging. Thank you.
How you doing? I have a quick question. I hope no one hates me in here for this question, but how far does our economy have to take a plunder for the rural population to, for them not to vote Republican when they're getting food stamps, they're about their guns and God? We're going to find out how far the economy is going to have to take a dump. How far is it's going to have to take a dump for them, the people in the rural areas in this country, to start voting for their interests and not against it.
Okay, thank you. All right, you're a veteran?
Yes, sir, I am.
What were you in?
Air Force.
The Air Force, all right.
Thank you.
I'm an old Marine myself.
Good, good. I have 3 questions, all in one when a short.
You have what now?
I got 3 questions I wanted you to respond
3?
to. Yes, but they're real short questions.
All right, hurry up.
Okay, the first one is, I'm the chairman of the IndependenceNationalParty.org. Whether the people of the country...
Is that a question or a speech? Just let me know.
No, okay. Well, we have tried to get on the books to run for election, but there is an advisory opinion that stops you from getting on there legally.
Right.
And the candidates got on there this time that were independents, and I don't know how they got on there with the advisory opinion, because we was going to run Jesse Ventura and John Glenn.
Again, I'll call for the question.
Okay. The next question is the...
Well, that wasn't the first one, so let's try the first one.
We'll go to the second one. I got 3, so you get 3 cracks at it.
That's okay.
Okay, the second one is with the Democratic Party, it seems to be like an apartheid party in the sense that the people that are complaining are minority interests, but the people that want to run it are not. And I think it's an apartheid party like South Africa.
All right. Well, you know what? Opinions like noses. Everybody's got one.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they don't let the minority run.
You're not asking me a question. You're giving me an opinion, which is perfectly okay. You have every right to do that.
Okay.
But just say I just got a microphone here, and I want to give everybody my opinion, and that's fine. Okay. We're all.
Well, I got one more question, and the final one is Alaska and Hawaii don't have electoral votes. And I've been trying to get no, you can vote for them. If they do, they never show them on TV what the electoral number is.
Okay.
And
we have a difference of opinion. What we got here is
they don't have
to communicate.
They don't have 26 or 29.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay.
This is a hard act to follow. I don't know what the statistics were with the millennials. So if we forget about the older white male, just forget about them for the moment, because we're not going to convert them.
But they're our countrymen. Why would we forget? We're good Democrats.
We're not going to convert
them. We
them.
don't leave anybody behind.
But the millennials that didn't vote.
What's the question?
Why can't the Democratic Party and the candidates make sure that there's absentee ballots because the kids don't want to vote when they're in college, or make it a civic duty
because
that when the
we
kids
don't control.
Enroll,
the simple answer, the simple unsatisfying answer is We don't control the Florida legislature. I can't.
Work through education, work through the foundations to make sure that when kids...
I'm all for it. What's my message?
So make it happen.
Expose and educate.
Okay, but we can't, instead of doing it individually.
There are people standing behind you. It's okay.
Forget expose and educate. How much of Trump's election is due to the dislike of people like me or people like us?
People like?
Me. Northern, liberal, Jewish, the whole
I love you, man.
I'm
Southern. I'm Southern Catholic, old, white, proud Democrat. All 5 of us.
How much of it is personality based and rather than issue based?
Okay. The what now?
How much of it is personality based, disliking people like me versus?
I don't. Again, I'm for. What are our shared values? Pluralism, knowledge. If you believe in pluralism, you like people for who they are. You don't care what religion they are, what ethnic group they are, that's our shared values we have to fight for. Not everybody shares our values. But I love you.
I have 2 questions, and they are both questions.
All right.
The first is, since the man with no principles has already reversed himself in the first 2 weeks on everything from prosecuting the Clintons to draining the swamp to building the wall, repealing Obamacare, what happens when those who drank the Kool-Aid wake up and realize they've been conned?
What's our job? Expose and educate. So we got to tell them that it's really crappy Kool-Aid.
All right, here's
part
2, which is really what part 1 was leading up to. Would you describe for us an action plan leading up to the midterm elections?
Expose and educate.
Can you be more specific?
Well,
because
the problem we have is specificity.
We had enough of a guy who only used slogans.
You asked the question, I'm answering it. Okay? The problem we have is that we got a 10-point program for everything. We got a 2-point program. We're going to research, and we're going to find out, and then we're going to raise hell. And then after we do that, we're going to research, we're going to find out, and then we're going to raise more hell. And after we do that, we're going to research, we're going to find out, and we're going to continue to raise hell. That's the plan. We don't have a 10-point plan. We got a 2-point plan. We always have 6 sides to the Pentagon.
We have time for 2 more questions.
So I got 1, but 2 more, that's it.
That's it.
They're over now. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Welcome, we're glad you're here. So according to the Washington Post, Trump won Michigan by about 12,000 votes, Wisconsin by about 27,000, and Pennsylvania by about 68,000. And Gary Johnson took double or triple or quadruple that amount of votes in each of those states, and Florida similarly. It was about 137,000 here, and he got about 204,000 votes. Do you have any comment on preferential voting, where you get 2 choices, and if your first choice doesn't get 50%, no, they do this in Australia and in other major countries, where it allows a third party to not be a spoiler.
Can I say, I want to say something, and answer your question. Right now, we're up against the wall. The country is in crisis. We have a fool that knows nothing about nothing running the country. We're not, and that's great, and that's aspirational, and we should have preferential voting, we should change the Constitution, we should organize and do something about gerrymandering. Right now, we're under siege. Fix bayonets. All right? I mean, and that's good, and it's great. Our problem is that we are too diligent. We want to solve everything. Right now, we have got to stop this man. We've got to tell the country that they're getting ready to get run over. That's what we got to do. We don't have time for theorizing. We don't have time for some visionary structural change to the world. Our ass is up against the wall. And we got to fight back now. And I don't mean to be, and I understand that. And what I'm trying to say is that a lot of times our problem is we not concise enough and not emotional enough. If we don't put our facts out. That's why I wrote the book. Most people are going to say, yeah, I didn't know that. You mean to tell me that the Democrats are leading job creation, that every Democratic president in the last 50 years created more jobs? I had no idea. I didn't realize that in the stock market it boomed during Democratic time. I had no idea. I had no idea that these people that really study this stuff come up with all of this. We have got to quit second-guessing ourselves. We have got to quit talking about too many things, and we've got to get out there, tell people what our values are, tell people what's going on in the country, and do it in a way that they can understand. That's my point. And I don't mean to be rude to anybody, but we don't have time right now to worry about Gary Johnson. I mean, we're in trouble.
It's not Gary Johnson.
No.
My point, more or less, was that 107,000 voters made Trump president.
Right.
And it seems that the Democrats do have more voters. We have more voters all the time. But the way the infrastructure is created, we end up losing.
But right now, he's the president. I pointed out. I pointed out that we got more votes than him. I think, but right now we are, you know, for women's health issues, for everything else in the world that you care about, we're in a battle. We're under siege. And you're right. If it had been 100,000 votes here, if the popular vote, if we didn't do this and everything else, but you got to outright anti-Semite who's right next to the president's office. That's happening in real time as I speak. Thank you. Go ahead.
If Trump is really that excited about President Obama's advice, as you mentioned the other day, what would you think of him nominating him to the vacancy on the Supreme Court?
He doesn't know anything. He goes in there and the president tells him about all the good stuff about Obamacare, and he says, great, no one has told him that the only way that you can have insurance for people that need it is to force people to buy insurance that don't need it. He hasn't figured that out.
Yeah, but he could pretend
Nobody's
to try
told
to heal
him.
the country. He could pretend
The
to try to heal the
Republican
country.
Party couldn't vote for any single thing that Obama ever did. They opposed everything. You think they're going to vote to put him on the Supreme Court? I mean, come on. We got to live in the world here.
He loves to put on a
We got a real world to live in.
He loves to put on a show. He likes to at least pretend that he's going to try to unify. Okay. That would be something he might like to do just to make a show of it.
Well, that's great. I hope he does. But I'm going to go on the assumption that he's not.
Stranger things have happened. Trump was elected.
If he appoints President Obama to the Supreme Court, I will publicly say I was totally wrong about this man. I beg the forgiveness of the people of the United States. I stand a humble man before you. I had no idea.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Mr. Carville will be signing books outside. Books are for sale outside as well.
Thank you all for coming. The autographing will be out there. There are books for sale, and James will be more than happy to meet each one of you. Also, Alan Cummings starts at 8 o'clock, so we hope to see you back here for then. Thank you all.
That was James Carville from earlier this week at the Miami Book Fair, and we are back live in Miami on the campus of Miami-Dade College on the north end of downtown Miami. Several hours of live coverage ahead. Senator Bernie Sanders is coming up, and you'll be able to ask him questions, and he'll also be in the C-SPAN room talking about his book, Our Revolution. Dave Barry is also coming up this afternoon, as is Stephen Johnson, who writes about technology and innovation and different ideas like that. You'll have a chance to talk with him as well. But next up, from the Book TV room here at Miami-Dade College, it's James Glick, scientist, and his most recent book is about time travel. Time Travel History is what it's called. This is Book TV on C-SPAN 2, and this is live coverage of the 33rd Annual Miami Book Fair.